All right, we're going to look at repairing old damaged photos, okay, and stuff like that. So I have two images open here, okay, this one and this one. Um, and to start out, there's a few things that you want to do first, and the first one probably would be to crop and straighten the image, assuming that you got it from a flatbed scanner or from just being shot with a phone camera or whatever. It would normally need to be cropped and straightened. Here we have the crop tool that will do that. Okay, you can adjust the size and you can also rotate with that. And it's no or yes up here. Okay, or hit escape or enter on the numeric keypad. This is already straight, so I'm not going to crop this. But so you get it cropped first and cut off any stuff on the outside. There's a little bit of white frame on this one. I think I'm going to leave it. And also, what you'd want to do in the beginning is any kind of a descreening. If it's done like a lot of some images might be if they were taken from a printed piece, um, might be made up of little tiny dots, right? This is an actual photograph, so I can see some JPEG artifacts here. But if it was scanned from a printed piece, you might have these little tiny dots. And what happens is the little tiny dots make an sort of an interference pattern with the dots or pixels in the file, and it will create kind of like waves of lightness and darkness in the image that just ruins it. So that's sort of a tough thing to deal with. Usually printed pieces aren't a good source for photo retouching, but probably the best thing to do is if you're inputting it on the scanner, a lot of times scanners will have a descreening feature on there. If you use that, that works the best if it's fixed while it's brought in. Okay. Also, but if that's not an option, you can also use filter noise median, and you can try, and that will, if it's, you can see median really blurs something out, but if you set it to a very low amount, like 2 or 3 or something, it can get rid of that screened quality somewhat. Okay, I'm not going to do that because this doesn't have that problem. All right. And then after that, I think I'll color balance first, and then any actual work I do on damaged parts, I'm going to do on a copy of the layer. Let's look at this one, this image for color correcting. So if we go to image adjustments here, right, we have a bunch of things we can use. Brightness, like this image is very low contrast, right? It's fading. So you might think of brightness contrast as a good option, but actually this isn't good for photo retouching. With photo retouching or working with photographs, you're trying to maintain the fidelity as much of the tonal range as you can. And this particular tool kind of tends to take the entire tonal range from lights to darks and shoves it back and forth in a way that loses image quality, right? So levels and curves are the two things that photographers use most, and they're very good at preserving the tonal range of an image. They're less user friendly though. Okay, and hue saturation isn't bad also. So let's look at this and kind of analyze this image with levels. Okay, so this is when we look at levels, this is called a histogram. Okay, and um, basically it's like a bar chart. Think of the images having 255 levels of tone from dark to light. Okay, if you break the image down into tones, which that's how Photoshop sees it, or digital files, how they consider it. Anyway, this all the way on the left side here is black. and all the way on the right side is white. And think of this as a bar chart showing how many pixels there are of every tonal level. All right. So when you look at, it's a little hard to break. This thing's very uniform, but you know, you could say that this very high peak here is probably these white areas on the building and the highlights on her dress, kind of. And then there's some medium peaks here, which is probably all the foliage and grass. And then there's a bit of a hump down here, which is maybe some of the darker shadows. Okay. And a couple of, a small amount that's close to white. All right. So, but anyway, this histogram is very typical of a faded photograph, meaning it looks like an island in the middle. So what that tells you is that there's no black or anything even close to black, right? And there's no white or not much that's even close to really white. So the way that you use levels, and this is, you can, this is how I use 99% of the time. All I do with levels is if I want to fix a faded image, I take the black marker and move it into the edge of the island and move the white marker and move it into that edge, okay? And I can use the middle one to kind of maybe adjust it by eye a little bit. And then it will, those two markers, if you say, okay, they expand outwards, they pull the image out into having full tone range. Okay, so I'll say, okay. And now if I go image adjustment levels, you can see that it's pulled the thing out like that. You can also use these eyedroppers to try to set, if you know something an image is supposed to be black or white, you can use those eyedroppers to try to adjust the image by using them. Although I don't use that very often. Okay, so this worked pretty well. It still has a very strong color cast. So let's go maybe look at curves a little bit. So here with curves, you can see the histogram, right? And there's it's an RGB image, right? So it's made up of 3 channels, red, green, and blue. If I look at red, there it is. There's all the red tones. Here's all the green, very high in the middle. And here's the blue, which is very little in the bright areas. Okay, so I could try, like, I can click right in this and pull it down a little bit, try to get that looking better. Red looks a little high too. Okay, so we're trying to get it closer to reality. In fact, you might have to go in and, you know, you can tell that this is pretty definitely blue sky. You might have to go in and do some hand tinting on an image that's as bad as this one. But let's undo what we just did. And there's and some automatic tools in Illustrator that in Photoshop, sorry, that might work well for this. So I'm going to Control Z back to my original very faded looking image and go to image. And you have this auto tone, auto contrast, auto color. And I think auto, you can try all 3 of them to see what they do, but I think auto color might be, it just does whatever adjustments it thinks it needs to fix the picture. And that's pretty good. All right. It's a little bright, but you know, in fact, you can see those areas where the detail was lost, but they were lost in the fading of the image. All right, so that's in this case, it worked. I think it looked better than what I had done manually. So it kind of depends. That doesn't always, the auto color doesn't always give you what you want. A lot of times you have to do it manually, but that's pretty good for this one. All right, this image here, it has this is a black and white image, right? So it has a brownish tint to it. Okay, so I could just go. Let's see what auto color does. Just desaturates it, but it doesn't get these spots here, right? Some people like the sepia quality of an image and they just leave it. Um, I, I'm gonna, I think we should try to restore it to its best quality. So um, I'm gonna go image adjustments, and I'm just gonna hit desaturate. Okay. Yeah. So that didn't lose anything, right? And there was no information of the picture stored in the color. So just getting rid of it, that should be okay. All right. So now let's do some retouching. So I'm going to take this background layer here and just drag it to my new layer icon. So so I'm working on the copied layer. In case I screw something up, I can always just bring the piece back from the layer below it. But I do the color balancing and the cropping and everything before that, okay? Because they have to be um, kind of like the same. Well, at least the cropping beforehand, because they have to be the same size image if I want to bring something forward that to replace some part that I messed up. Um, I don't want it to. I want it to be the same size. Anyway, so we have a few tools that we can use to fix. We want to fix all these scratches and stuff, right? Um, uh, and we have a few tools we can use, but probably the most important thing is the rubber stamp tool, okay, or clone stamp tool, whatever it's called. Clone stamp tool, okay, it's right there. Not the pattern stamp tool, all right? And this is, there's a few kind of automatic uh, type tools that we can look at too, but this one is what you use for really uh, painting things out of a picture or painting new things in it, or painting things out of a picture mostly. Okay, and here we want to paint out all these scraps. Okay, scratches, folds, whatever they are. So I'm gonna, and I'm using the left to right bracket keys on the keyboard to make it bigger or smaller. Okay, and I have my hardness turned all the way down and the opacity is 100%. All right, so the clone stamp tool, it's like it's got all the settings like the paintbrush or any other brush tool. All right, the one thing you have to do though is what this tool does is it copies a bit of the canvas to another bit of the canvas. Okay, so first thing you do is you hold down the Alt key and click. Okay, so that made my source there. Then I go here and I start painting. And you can see it goes, the little X on the top is transferring down to the area at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to Alt and reset it again and go here like this. So Alt click here. Now, if I Alt click here and go and paint, I'm going to get in a bit of that white edge. So I have to avoid that. And if I want to get close to this edge, I'm going to come down, make my thing a little bit smaller. All right. So now let's look at, so in the middle of an empty area, it's pretty easy, right? And like if I want to get this edge nice and clean, I probably should just crop that white edge off there. I might still do it, but I can just go and do like this. Okay. So when you're using this tool, you want to not run over where it was like this, right? You want to move it. If you think of a line as going between the source and destination, you want to be brushing perpendicular to that line, not parallel. If you run over itself, it'll make a kind of like repeated looking pattern that's obvious. And the point of photo retouching is to make it look like, not like somebody painted all over it, select, deselect, but that, you can't see your hand anywhere. So like, here's a place where you have to be careful. So I'm going to go Alt click here, and I'm going to put this right there and paint that edge out. Okay, so that worked pretty good. Okay, now there's a gradient happening here between the light and dark part of the arm. So I'm going to alt click here, go and try it a little bit there. Now I'm going to take this edge right here, alt click right on the edge, and then go right up to where kind of a little bit funky there. Whoops. So here there's this bit's coming in, but if I go like that, then it's bringing the light in there. That's not good, right? So right, it's tedious and time consuming. That's so see, I was getting a little blotchy there, so I have to be more careful with that. But so I got the big one off of her arm. Let's try this here. Okay, so looks a little, there's like a little bit of a bump there or something I probably should fix. This will be tough. Make it pretty small. Hold click right here. And sometimes you might have to just get your paintbrush, you know. I'm doing all this with just a mouse. You could be doing it with a tablet too. So I just made my paintbrush very small and maybe like, I'll try it around 50%. And I'm gonna alt click to get that color. You can't always use the paintbrush because a lot of times it's not going to maintain, it's going to look smoother than something that has sort of a textural pattern to it. Looks a little funky there. Anyway, not too bad. So so this is how we work with the clone stamp tool. All right, just in case it's not clear what I'm doing, let's just do a little exercise here. Let's open a new document and make it 5 by 5 inches at 300 pixels per inch. Okay, we have a square here. So this is just to make sure that you kind of understand this origin and the destination idea. So I'm going to drag a little rectangle here. Okay, I'm going to go edit, fill. I'm going to fill it with black. Okay, and I'm going to take my this is just good exercise on how to make a checker pattern in Photoshop. That's not exactly like a checkerboard, but so I'm with my selection tool and I'm just inside there, right? The Boolean choices are set to create new. But if I just drag it like this, and I can go edit, where is it? Define pattern right there. Okay, and I'm going to call it that. and then select, deselect. Okay. Now, so we defined a little pattern like that. This does have a point to it, so just bear with me. And then I'm going to go edit film. Okay. And for contents, I'm going to choose pattern. All right. And then down under your options, it's all the patterns that are stored in Photoshop and any that you have made. So here's some things I've made here, and that's the pattern you just made. Okay, and so we filled it with that pattern. Okay, so my point here was just I'm going to get a big soft brush, put this back to 100%. Okay, and just drag across it like that. All right. So to get rid of this red using the clone stamp tool, I can, and we're set to 100%. And I'm going to Alt click on a corner, okay? Because the corner is somewhere in the middle is less defined, right? So the corner is a defined place. So I click there. And then I go and I find another corner and I put it right on it, as accurate as I can be. And then I can just start painting, okay, to paint it out. Now see here, I ran into the edge. So you always have to watch out for where your origin or source, where that X is, it hits the edge. So this happened, okay? So I'll have to fix that. So I'm gonna go down here. Okay, same thing happened. So I just have to just find another source. So I'll get this upper left corner, Alt click, go down to this corner, paint that one out, Alt click here, find another corner, okay, and gets the red out. All right, so that's just an exercise, really. I don't think we need to keep that. All right,